Hey there, everyone. Welcome to A Slice of Life with Kellie and Jon. Today, our guest is Wendy Stuart Kaplan, and she's also known by Wendy Stuart, I guess, or Wendy Kaplan. And she is, now I got to get this straight. There's a lot here. She's a model, she's an actor, she's an MC, a stand up comedian, a documentary filmmaker, and I'm missing, I thought one. I thought there were six.
I think you're doing great.
There you go.
Well, you're hard to keep up with, and I'm so excited to hear everything about you. Jon, you met Jon a long time ago. So, Jon, what's that story?
Not actually not a long time ago, only a handful of months ago. Yeah, it was a holiday gathering, an event in New York City, where I met Wendy, and she was certainly the hostess with the mostest that night, and I just knew that she'd be an interesting guest. And so I've watched a couple of her podcasts and stuff, and she's just a ball of energy. So I know that Kellie and Wendy will just get along so well because you just love to talk about everything.
Everything.
Anything and everything. Yep.
Why don't Kellie, why don't you start off with
I'm
what
looking at
you
your resume, your little bio, and what interests me is you wrote a book called "She's the Last Model Standing." So
I did.
Have a history of modeling. What inspired the book?
I am the last model standing. I've been modeling literally for half a century.
Wow.
5 decades.
Out of the womb, you started as soon as you were born.
I started as an embryo. How many people as an embryo? No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, I've been modeling for like forever, and I decided to write this book because a lot of people who know me, my friends all call me supermodel or whatever. I was never a supermodel. As a matter of fact, I was never a model who anyone heard of, except I worked all the time. I've worked through major agencies, agents. I've had magazine covers. I've had campaigns. I never had a survival job. Okay. I've always been in the entertainment industry, which includes model, acting, stand-up comedian. I'm a spokesperson and all of that. But I thought to myself, my mother brought me up to say, you never toot your own horn. And Jon and Kellie, I want to share this with you. You have to toot your own horn, because if you don't get out there and toot it, no one will ever know. And I thought to myself, I've just got to let people know who I am. So I came up with the title, She's the Last Model Standing. Basically, you all remember the last comic standing, the last this standing. I'm I really am the last model standing. I think the most famous model who was a cover girl, Carmen. Yep. There's Carmen, and then there's me. Carmen was like, I like that, right? She was on every cover in the world. I was never on a Vogue cover, but I worked in every area of the business. And the book is also, though, it's a tribute to anybody that's ever gone for it and been shut down all along the way. You know, I think I can. You got to bowl full of lemons and you got to make them into lemonade. And that's exactly what I did. The book was also written not only for me, it was written for people out there to inspire them that, you know what, I was a kid with a dream. I grew up in the Bronx, and I remember from the time I was a little kid, I told my mother I was going to be a famous model and I was going to go to Africa. Now, for this kid in the Bronx, my mother was like, was this a milkman's kid or something? Where did the child come from with these aspirations? But you know what? That's exactly how my entire life turned out. One more thing. I also said I was going to have a Mexican Chihuahua. From the time I was a little kid, I was drawing pictures of Chihuahuas. I have lived and worked in Africa, made films in Africa, been modeling all this time, and I'm on my second Chihuahua. So you see, dreams do come true.
They do. You sound like me. I never really had a definite plan. I just wanted to do everything. To this day, every time we have a lot of different guests, and when they have a career that I haven't done, I'm like, oh, I want to do that too.
I want to do that.
I want to do this and that. And I work in a bank. I do the marketing for a bank, and I'm like, I want to do the accounting, and I want to do like all the jobs, like every job. I wanted to be a lender. I wanted to sell mortgages. I want to because I'm just fascinated with I love learning new things, I think is the main point of it. But yeah, having different experiences. That's so awesome that you
All of
are.
those experiences are in my book, and they're meant to inspire people because when
Wow.
I
Yep.
came to New York at 20, I was turned down by every model agency. And I kept going. I took myself to Paris because people said, "Oh, go to Paris, they'll love you."
Yeah.
They didn't love me. Okay. But I ended up getting with an agency. This is a true story that at the time, and this is not anything sexual, they represented transgender people. And there I was, right? And I'm like, this is not the way I want my career to go. So I came back to New York and I started doing what they call spokesperson work. And I think
Mhm.
that I was very good at it. Now, that was not the original thing I was going for, you guys. I wanted to be on a cover of a magazine. But all of these companies, like Kelly, you said you worked in a bank, they love hiring people
Yeah.
like me when they're doing any kind of shows in the public. I have to learn everything about them. And then I have to, bring customers to their booth if they're at a trade show. I got
Right.
very good at doing that kind of thing. The other niche in this industry that I fell into was what they call fit modeling. Do either of you know what that is?
Yeah, aren't you're a certain size, and you have to be a
Good. She
certain
knows, right?
size to fit the clothes.
Right. John thought it meant I lifted weights. No,
Yeah.
joking
No,
with you.
no.
Well, that
But
would be a fitness
I did
model.
not
You're a
know that
fitness
it
model.
was because certain you fit a
It'd be
certain
like a size
size.
six or something, right?
Yeah,
It'd be.
Kelly totally gets it. I'm a size 8. And John, the reason I'm joking with you is I've been on a lot of shows and they're like, so you're a fitness model. How much weight do you
Uh,
lift?
okay.
Oh,
Nobody heard
Yeah.
of modeling. They just haven't. And it's something that's very much needed. It tells you, like, John, you see the t-shirt you have?
Yeah.
I would say that that's called a crew neck. And if we measure that, it's probably 6 inches across and 3 inches down, right? Now, if I were making a nice neck for Kelly, I would lower it. That would be 6 inches down and
Right.
maybe 6.5 across, a little more open than yours. Yeah, but I had to be able to help designers take the things that you see on the runways that are like size 0 and size 2 and translate them from regular people.
yep, yep. Yeah, that's really interesting because a lot of people don't know there's all kinds of modeling.
Right.
We know all the supermodels just because we know their names and
Right.
they're on the covers, but there's so much modeling
Oh
work
yeah.
out there to do and spokesperson work. And I
Right.
dabbled in some of that stuff when I was younger too, because
I know
I
about
ended
it.
up in the acting world, but I was
Oh,
very short and very tiny and didn't really fit into the clothes and stuff. But yeah, yeah,
and
one
you know
time
what?
I'm
Your
not.
life turns out okay anyway. How
It
about
is
that?
what it is, but it's fun, and it's again, there's so many jobs out there. This is why I really like having these podcasts because there's so many jobs out there that you might not even have thought of or known
Mhm.
about that they exist. And we meet the
Absolutely.
most interesting people. And your story is like you said, it is inspiring because you've written a book, you've done all these other things. I want to hear about, so when you went to
Yeah.
another
I want
country,
to
the
hear
other
about the
country.
documentary and traveling
Yeah.
around the world.
My book actually opens up in Nigeria. And you've all heard about the Boko Haram. They were in the news.
Right.
I was there. I was working in the southern part of Nigeria with the Yoruba people, studying traditional African religion, or what we call here voodoo. And I hate using that term, but I was studying that. I was studying a particular deity, Shango, the god of thunder. And I had the opportunity to travel up to the north, which was really different. The houses were all made of mud, it's desert and everything. I was in a city called Kano, and I'm up there and I'm sitting outside, and all of a sudden these guys come in, galloping on horses with sabers on there. I mean, it was like, it was out of like a movie or
And
something.
what this was maybe 20 years or so ago.
1976, way more than that.
Holy mackerel.
Right. And their faces were covered in like black gauze. You couldn't even see their faces. And I'm sitting there drinking my drink, and they come galloping into town, and I had a Lebanese friend there came over, and told me who they were. They were basically the Boko Haram, who you have been in the news, of course, if you fast forward. And
Right.
there I was with waist length blonde hair, not a care in the world, couldn't imagine anything happening to me.
Oh,
But little did I know, like a week later, my friends that were from Lebanon, I was swimming in somebody's pool there, and they were all laughing. And I thought, oh, maybe they're laughing at the way I look in my two-piece bathing suit, or the way I swim, or the fact that my hair's turning green in the chlorine. And they said to me, we're laughing because if you knew what had happened in that pool a month ago, you wouldn't be in that water now. 6 people were murdered and their bodies thrown into the pool. This is how crazy and rough it was. But you see, I have a wonderful way of looking at the world through rose-colored glasses. I couldn't imagine anything happening to me. And even knowing that, I have always believed I have a guardian angel on my shoulder. And I had an amazing time living in Nigeria. The very famous traditional doctor, his grandson became my really close friend. And I was privy to traditional medicine and ritual and things that you cannot scientifically explain, which ended up, of course, fast forward to decades later, me
right.
wanting to make documentary films in remote parts of the world. And I've done films on animal rescue with poachers, but I've also done films with traditional people and the rituals that they have and the things I've seen. I'm very careful how to edit them because a lot of it will not go over big in this country. People will think now they'll think it's AI or something like that. But I spent time in the northern part of Ethiopia by the Omo Valley in a village with the Hammer people, and they have a very traditional religion coming of age ceremony. And we were there trying to make a film about them. My husband was my shooter, my videographer, and they let me become part of the ceremony. My face got painted and everything, but that was all they let me do because the ceremony opens up and the women are jumping up and down. And of course, they don't wear clothing on top. They're bare. And the opening part of the ceremony, the men are hitting them with bushes, twigs across their back, and they're
Oh,
bleeding and they're
oh
laughing. Right. Look at your reaction.
no.
Yeah, well, but this is what you learn. And I've talked about this with scientists. Maybe they have a totally different reaction to pain. Our reaction, right, is so bred into us. If
Mhm.
we get a cut or anything, we're bleeding, we feel it, we go, ow. I can honestly tell you, I was there with my own eyes. They're jumping up and down, dancing. They're bleeding. It's part of the ceremony, and everybody's having a grand old time. I had a little bit of that in the movie, and I took it out because on the pre-screenings, it just didn't go over. It's not going to work in our culture. But yeah, I talk about these things in my book. I talk about my first acting jobs in my book, which were really incredible. When I first became an actress in New York, I worked with Trauma Productions. Do you guys know them?
Yeah, yeah. They made Trauma Productions made the
Toxic
Toxic
Avenger.
Avenger.
Right.
Actually, a cousin of mine was the guy, was the scientist.
Oh, and who was that?
His name was George.
George the
But
cousin.
yeah, George and until he fell into the vat of whatever turned him
Yeah,
into the Toxic Avenger, and
yeah,
then
right.
he was out, and then he's never worked again since then. So
He fell
that's
into the pot of goop, but trauma is really interesting. I'm still, of course, in touch with them. They have a whole chapter in my book because that was my very first start, and they made low budget B films, but their distribution, Lloyd Kaufman was a genius at that. And he's still, I shouldn't say was still, they're making these films. They have a huge cult following. I
Yep.
did two films for them. Squeeze Play about a girls' baseball team that takes over a small town, and Waitress. And by the time I got to Waitress, I was more than just a girl in a wet t-shirt contest. By the time I got to Waitress, I had lines. And I played his secretary. But you guys, I didn't have a lot of lines, but I could talk. So when Lloyd finished the film, he said, "Listen," he said, "I want to send you out on a press junket to appear in all the malls when the film's getting ready to open, to sign autographs and all of that, and you'll be on radio shows." I mean, this is amazing, right? And it was all paid for by them. And it was like Evansville, Indiana, Henderson, Kentucky, Houston, Texas. And looked at what he was putting together, and I'm like, wait, you have me build as the star of the film. The girl who was the star of the film was this gorgeous, there's bikini girls in all his films, beautiful blonde bikini, perfect everything, and she had the lead. I said, I only have, like 10 lines. And I said, "You've got me built as a star." I said, "I'm not up and coming." He said, "Well, you're not down and out either." And he said, I love Lloyd, right? That is how he looks at things. And he sent me on this press junket. And what I was worried about is the movie would open and everybody would find out I was a liar.
Aw.
That didn't happen at all, because Lloyd would get me out of town. I'd sign my autographs like the day before in the mall, feeling
Right.
like talk about imposter syndrome, feeling like a total imposter. And then the car would take me and we'd do some radio, TV, local TV, and then I'd be gone on to the next place. But I got to tell you, what a wonderful way to enter into the acting world.
Yeah.
And they're still going strong. I just did a reading from my book for them at they were doing a once a month get together, trauma get together. So yeah, it's all really great stuff.
Hmm. Well, also, I hear you do a talk show, celebrity talk show with
Yeah, so
celebrities.
I do a show called If These Walls Could Talk. And it is not only a celebrity talk show, I have expanded it into a talk show where I interview explorers. As I told you guys, I'm a member of the Explorers Club. There's only 3,700 people in the world that get into that club. And I'm part of the New York branch. I got in because of the documentary films I've made, which I will talk about the ones I've done on poaching. I'm working with gorillas and chimpanzees. But yeah, it's like just been incredible. And I thought, well, why am I just interviewing celebrities, right? I've got carte blanche to all these other, like Kelly said, there's
Interesting
all
people.
interesting
Yeah.
stuff and people. I'm like, let me get some of these explorers on. But in my celebrity area, I've interviewed Eric Roberts, Stephanie Powers, Dee Wallace.
That's
And
right. Wait, Stephanie Powers,
Dr.
her
Hart.
and William Holden,
Yes.
they spent a lot of money and they bought a reserve, if
I
I'm
can
not
tell you all
mistaken.
about it. Yeah, absolutely. Amazing.
A lot of people don't remember any of that.
I talked a lot about that on the show because, yeah, we remember Heart to Heart, we remember the shows. But the thing that I love getting these people at this stage in their career, first of all, Stephanie's still working, whether people know it or not. She
Wow.
wrote a memoir. She's working over in London in the West End in theater. I mean,
Wow.
once an actor, always
Yep.
an actor. And
Yep.
then on top of it, she's kept the whole animal preserve going in the name of William Holden. That was their passion together.
Yep.
And
Yep.
she's still doing so much for the animals over in Africa. It's really amazing. So
Oh,
I love interviewing. I interview cabaret artists, many that you've heard of and ones on the way up. There's nothing better to me. I like getting very young new artists, and I've got a couple coming on. I like to follow their careers. Where are they going? And,
mhm.
and where are they going to end up a few years from now? But I also love a lot of the senior artists that are out there that are over 80. Guess what? There's a ton of them.
Yeah.
The ones in their 60s, and so many people, you guys would probably ask, we always ask, where's so and so? Where are they now? I don't see them anymore. They're there. They're either doing independent films or they're doing theater. People just, if this is not like a business where you get a gold watch and you're out on a golf course. If
Right.
you're a creator, you want to continue to create
Yeah.
till, you know what?
It's like
Till you're
musicians too, right,
60.
John? You're always wanting, or writers or musicians, writers, actors.
Right,
Yep.
Yeah.
Same
exactly.
It's in your
thing.
blood. You want to do it your whole life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I interview a lot of female rockers I've just been turned onto that are in their 50s and 60s that, believe it or not, have been around since the days of punk. These women are still out there. I go to their shows, Ado's Shrunken Head. They play in the East Village. They play at all of the clubs like the Bitter End and everything. They're still out there
Yep.
doing their thing. And you
Oh,
know what?
they're playing down here in Jersey, down at the Stone
Absolutely.
Pony, and
They are, right.
all those old rock clubs that are
Yeah.
still pulling them in.
And
So
but you know what? They're pulling them in because people want to see this.
Hmm.
And it's up to people like me or like you. We get them on our shows, we promote what they're doing, and then we get
Yep.
people to go there. I always say I'm so blessed with every day with what I do.
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds like you are very passionate and you've made your own path. You
I
just
made my
really
right. I made
didn't.
my own path because nobody else made it for me. And so I'm also, and I didn't put this in, I'm also a speaker on this stuff, okay? Because you hear about people having their lucky breaks or this or that happening to them or being discovered. Nobody came out there for me. Nobody's coming out there for me now. I am
Yeah.
still turning it out on my own. And what's so great about that is at the end of the day, you own what you're doing.
that's
Okay, you
right.
have total artistic control, but it's hard. How do I back this up? I have a major PR firm that represents me, and I'm also now an influencer. Interestingly enough, I've been in this industry so long, there was no such thing as an influencer when I
Right.
started. There weren't even computers or any of this stuff, no TikTok or Instagram or Facebook, none of it. So, as performers, we really do have more we can do on our own now, but it is really that much harder. And I'm going to tell
Yeah.
you, I'm going to tell you both sides of the coin because that's the kind of person I am. And I don't sugarcoat anything. If you go on Netflix and you watch a lot of the Netflix produced movies, they're very good, they're enjoyable. You'll see so many of the same faces again and again. I don't mean the name actors, I mean the supporting actors.
Yep.
It is interesting. While we were all home twiddling our thumbs during the pandemic because there literally was no work, which is why I started doing podcasts. I go and I look at Netflix, like think it was like 8 weeks into the pandemic, 10 weeks into the pandemic, maybe even 6 months into the pandemic. Well, there were a ton of films shot out there, weren't there? And they were shot in places like Canada. So there we all were in New York having productions shut down, being told we couldn't do this, we couldn't do that. My friends were all out of work the way I was. And they were making films up in Canada. The studios found a way to get around it. And you
Mhm.
would see the same actors. They were American actors. They just shipped them up there.
Yeah.
It's not a fair deal. That is why you have to have as much control over what you're doing as you possibly can.
Yeah. Well, it's always been a matter of making connections too.
Right, right.
And like you said, tooting your own horn. Those exact words, when I was a young girl in LA, I worked for William Morris Agency, the largest
Love it.
talent agency in the world at the time. And I was, you start in the mailroom, you hear the story. I started in the mailroom and all
You
the,
did. I love it.
we were kids. We were in our, early 20s. And then you get put on a desk or, you become an assistant to one of the agents or somebody. And so all the people that I worked with in the mailroom, we all got put in our positions and I got in mine. And I ended up not sticking with it. I went to the acting side because I got the little acting bug. But some of the kids that I grew up with in that area, in that business, I've seen being thanked on the Oscars because now they're big time
Yeah.
agents.
Now they're agents. Yeah.
But one of the agents, her name is Nina Nissenholtz. I will love her forever. She was a firehouse. She was like big time agent at William Morris in LA. And she called me into her office one day and I was like, oh no, what'd I do? I was terrified. She sat me down and she said, Kelly, I want you to drop a letter. and I want you to do bullet points and write down everything you've done since you started, because you have done all these things on it. You've taken your initiative. Nobody told you what to do. And because I get bored, and if I'm bored, I'm going to do something. I'm just going to look around for something to do. And she goes, you need to learn to toot your own horn if you want to survive in this business. That's exactly what she said. And I'll never forget it. And so I did. I wrote the letter and everything. And she said, I want you to take it around to all the department heads. But that was big of her. She was very successful.
Great, you followed through, because if we don't toot our own horn, sometimes we're so you're humble, right? You're humble.
Well, yeah, where I come from, you don't do that. I toot other people's horns. Like my friends and I, we toot each other's horns so that we can let people know how awesome they are. But if you don't have that kind of support system, and everybody's tooting horns all over the place, and you're not. And yes, I did it because I was scared of her. I was like, I'm not going to not do it. She was just so powerful and so intimidating. And I looked up to her, but I was like, okay, I'll do it. But yeah, I thought it was just such a big thing for someone like her, who's so successful. And just looking out for some little girl from Ohio, nobody knows.
What that little girl from Ohio was doing. She was actually able to put all those bullet points there. I think what's interesting to me is you were on the upward trajectory at William Morris, and you left it.
I didn't know what I had. I had no clue what it was. And I'm glad I did, though, because it just wasn't. Although I would say I'd make a good manager if I had stayed in that business, and I met so many talented, beautiful women and talented people. Yeah. I could have been a good manager because I can be very pushy for other people. I'm not pushy for myself. Right. I can be very pushy for other people. So I think, anyway, yeah, I probably maybe made the wrong decision.
Well, you know what, Kelly? I'm going to tell you this. It's never too late. There's a ton of people on my level that are out there. I'm looking for a manager. I've been through a number of agents that I've booked with, and then when I stopped booking, they were done with me. Or I've been taken on by agencies that really had no idea who I was. I don't know why they took me on. I would kill. I have a great PR person. Great. They're fabulous. World Star Media. But I would kill to find a manager. And I have found a lot of fakes. And I will say that there are so many fakes out there. I'm a manager. And it's like, well, what are you managing? Who are you making money for? They'll take these kids on, and from their paltry little regional theater jobs, take a percentage that the actor got themselves, and not got them anything else. Nothing beyond.
I found that out. I found that out during my time, quickly during my time in LA. Especially as a writer, script writer. Everybody loves my script, and everybody's a producer, and everybody can help you get your movie made. And just because you go to the printer at the time and got a card printed up and put producer on it and got your 310 area code, I'm a producer. They're not producers. Okay. I found out that the majority of people who claim to be a producer were people who simply had a connection to people. And
which we all have.
Exactly.
They were trying it.
I'll take your script. I'll give it to somebody. Okay, how much you want to pay for an option? Oh, I don't pay for options. Well, you're not a producer. I'm a producer at the time. Okay, this is way back.
I know. But
in the 20s, in the early 2000s, it would be like, so what do you have over at Blockbuster that I could rent that has your name on the credits?
Good for you.
No. It's in post. Everything's in post. Yeah, okay. Get out of here.
No, John, I'm loving this conversation. What do I have at Blockbuster that I can rent that has your name on it? Right. Yeah. You nailed them.
Oh, yeah. That was, and I got to tell you, that also gave me a problem. I became a problem person in LA because I questioned their authority. And found out that, and literally, I've gotten up at lunches, 2/3 of the way through lunch at Nate and Al's, or and stuff like that, and just said, look, this is not You're not who you claim you are. You have no,
It's
and
BS.
you're wasting my time. You're not going to get my script for nothing. See ya. And I'd get up and walk away. And, I would actually get phone calls from other lesser producers who go, "Did you really get up and walk away from so and so?" Yeah, yeah, I did.
Good for you.
Hollywood's like
So,
that though. It's full of people they're wannabes, and you got to give them credit for trying, for saying, I'm going to do this, I can do this, I'm going to try
well,
to do this.
the law of large numbers. You throw enough crap against the wall, something's
Exactly.
going to hit. So
Yeah.
you find, some kid who really wants to get their movie made, and doesn't know crap about options and how
Yeah,
to,
or any of that.
or
Right.
anything about
They're
that.
not
And
prepared.
yeah, here's my script. And then, then the next thing you know, they're saying, well, look, now we need about $15,000 in start money. Can you raise that? You know, and it's like, wait
You're
a
like, if I
minute.
could raise that, I wouldn't need you.
If you look at, and I would tell them all the time, or they'd say to me, "So who do you have attached?" I go, "Did you see my card? Remember the card I gave you?" "Yeah." "What does it say under my name?" "Mine says writer." "I'm looking at your card. Yours says producer."
Right.
"My job is not to get anybody attached. That's your job."
Yeah.
And so of course I would, I'm a difficult person, they would say. So
I first of all, I don't find that difficult at all.
Mhm.
Kelly, second of all, like you said, you can't blame them for trying. I do blame them. I do because
Well,
I have
for trying to
only
take advantage of other people.
right. They
Yeah.
take advantage and they're not being truthful. By the way, the two of you, if you ever think of this, if you ever have a game plan down the road, I'm just putting it into your universe. The both of you would make a great management team. Just saying from a very seasoned performer, because you've been through it, you get the way things work and you tell the truth. And to me,
that's all very well and good when dealing with our clients, okay? Then we have to deal with the agent, or
Yeah.
and
Or the casting
that's
director.
that's where the industry is levels above what I remember the industry being
Yeah.
back in the early, 2000, when I left LA in
It's
2004.
very different now.
It's a
Everything's done
completely
online.
different world.
yeah,
And the
it, it
actors seem like they have to do all the work. Like when they do auditions, they have to
Well,
submit a tape. They have to
this
record
is what we do.
themselves.
We're on this whole tape thing. Keep in mind, you guys, nobody's got to rent a studio anymore for a casting. For the very final thing, they can, for the final 10 people, it's going to cost them what, a couple of $100 for 2 hours. So they can do. But we're all on Zoom. At home, I have a whole ring light set up. I've got the background set up nicely. I put the wardrobe out. Last week I had 7 auditions. I nailed 1 callback. I had the clothes hanging for each one. The characters were different. Hair and makeup had to be a little different. I print out the scripts, okay, and then I organize them next to the clothing. This is so
mhm.
insane. Ask me how
Yeah.
much time this takes. I would
Yeah.
kill to be able to go out, and go to 1650 Broadway, go into a place. Someone says, "Slate your name, please."
Yep.
Right.
And I read from the script with a reader and I call it a day. I did have one of those last week and I was too young for the role, but it's just not like that anymore. And for those of us that can read a room and come alive on stage, we don't want to be doing this stuff on Zoom. We want human beings. I don't even care if there's 6 of them, and you probably remember this, Kelly, when you were doing this. You read across from 6 people, and you know that like the one in the middle really hates you. You remind them of their ex-wife, or as I used to say, the unicorn horn starts growing out of the middle of my head. You can feel they don't like you, but you know what? I would prefer to have that where it's live and they say to you, take it in a different direction. Then I'm like self-directed
Yep.
at home. It's
They
crazy.
put all the work on the actor. Like you're doing all of the work for, you have to come alive and you have to show personality
And you
and
have to
read off of
then you clean
nothing.
it when you're done taping it, right?
Yeah.
Then it's got to be uploaded.
Yeah.
All right. And sent on its way. Oh, and this is my favorite. Sometimes they'll give you 4 pages with directions on how to frame yourself. So now you're framing yourself, right, as if you were shooting a movie. All right. And then they want all the pieces put together, virtually labeled and uploaded.
That's a
That's
lot of work.
for 2
Well,
hours.
it's not that. They don't want to have to think for themselves. They want you to, I want to see what it's going to look like in the actual movie,
Right.
you know? And we want
Oh, you're
you
right.
Yeah. Oh, it makes
to
it a
put
million
it
times
together.
easier for them.
Well, and this is on my end. Okay. This is on my end for screenplays. Now we're dealing with a couple of producers. Well, there was a time if the producer would, hey, they'd read your synopsis, so they'd hear your pitch, and they go,
pitch.
hey, I'd like to read that script. Okay, so you would, whether it was FedEx the script or now email them the script in a PDF. They don't read. I'll get back to you in 2 weeks. What that means is, in 2 weeks they will give it to a reader. Okay. And then when you contact them 3 weeks later, they'll say, oh, I haven't gotten to it yet. It's on the top of my pile, but I will. And then, okay, now, and I'm talking about as far back as at least 3 to 4 years ago, producers won't even get you there. They want what's called a pitch deck.
Absolutely. I know all these terminologies.
Okay. And so now the writer, instead of the producer putting together the package that will be presented to the studio or production company,
As it should be.
Exactly. The writer has to put together a PowerPoint presentation with not just a synopsis, but we need images. And then we need you to use images from movies that were successful, so we know that what you are trying to sell me comes from a genre that has already made $100 million. Okay? I'm telling you. And then, of course, they want, give us a list of actors that you think could play this part. Not a list, but a screen of their faces.
Right. On top of everything else they've asked.
I'm the writer. Now I have to, fortunately, I knew how to work with PowerPoint.
Right.
But the majority.
How long did with the amount of time you have to put in, and you haven't even sold anything yet?
Well, and it's right. Just before the producer will say, okay, now it's not that they gotta like the script. If they gotta like your pitch deck. If they don't like your pitch deck, they're not going to ask for your script. Yeah. And all of these things are the job of the producer. It's
I agree.
Like they don't even, and I'm talking about professional producers.
Right.
Yeah. They want a pitch deck. Drives me nuts. Sorry, did not mean to deviate from the.
Oh wait, I love that we're talking about real stuff. So I'm going to throw this back to you as a writer. How do you get around all of this?
You don't.
I do it.
Yeah,
I do it.
Guys, you know what? When we're off screen, we're going to make a little phone call, all of us this week, because I'm really good at this part of it. We all need to talk.
Okay, I'd be happy to, but me and the guy I wrote the script with, Steve Barr, and the script was Deadfellas, and we put together what we think is a very good pitch deck, and we are just waiting for the attorney to contact us and go,
you're probably looking for people to put money behind it at this point.
You know what? I'm thinking about. Okay, maybe we'll talk about it when we're off screen.
Yeah,
I'm thinking about this is an opportunity. Okay.
Yeah, it's an opportunity. I like Kelly's really, really smart. She works with a bank, so she does.
They don't let me touch the money. I don't do anything with the money.
That's why
but you do marketing there. You gotta have
I let Kelly do all the questions and conversation. She is the smart one. I'm only on here for eye candy.
He's our
for the ladies boy to watch.
So I want to share with both of you in terms of my own filmmaking, right? I started making short documentaries, and the way that came about, I auditioned I never got the audition. It was Animal Planet was looking for someone for a new show called Ms. Adventure. This was like 12 years ago. And I had all the qualifications. I had been to the Amazon 6 times, northern part of Thailand, had already been in Nigeria, worked with local people there. I've lived with tribes. I had all the right stuff. And I talk about this in my book. And they wanted someone with a sense of humor, right? I had it all. It went to somebody that was 15 years younger than me, a size 0, and she did a little stand up and hadn't been anywhere. So what did Wendy learn from that experience? That, my late husband was an amazing videographer. Okay. I had already done all this stuff. I've been knee deep in the Amazon River. I'm an adventurer. I've got all the right stuff. He and I joined forces. All right. Did we get people to put money behind us? No, but I came up with a brilliant concept with frequent flyer miles, which we both had a ton of, and very little money because it wasn't expensive to shoot in these places. We would hire local people that many people might not have even thought of hiring. They would go there with a crew. I hired local guys that were just really smart. Some of them were tribal people that had been around other photographers. They were better than some of the assistants that my husband had in New York. And I would come up with the idea of what I wanted to shoot. All right. I would meet someone doing an incredible thing in Cameroon. I met this woman rescuing gorillas and chimpanzees in Cameroon from poachers. I'm like, oh, that's a great story. Yeah, I can make a film about that. I got the permits. I got a letter from the government, all through the woman who was doing that. And she said, well, what kind of film are you making? Are you with Nat Geo? I'm like, no, I'm by myself. And we got over there. And I mean, the film told the story itself. The baby chimps were left in the forest after the mothers and fathers were killed. And then they were put in these 2 amazing rescue centers, ironically run by women, where they created families, gorilla families, chimpanzee families. They were like foster families. And that was how these primates would get to live their life out. And people said to me, well, wait a minute, you're showing this film and they're in the enclosures were 4 acres. If you guys with your minds can think 4 acres is a lot of room, right? Yeah. Think about what 4 acres is. There was fencing around it. They could never get back into the forest, but the areas that were fenced were filled with fruit trees and everything they needed. Right. All right. If they had been released back into the forest, they would be killed again.
Right.
And then people say to me, why are they being killed? Well, in China and in the Middle East, they cut off the body parts and they use them for what they call medicinal purposes, right? Men believe that their virility will be affected by a rhino horn or something they can get from a gorilla or a chimpanzee, but this is actually going on. Then there's a whole trade called bushmeat. Gorilla sells for a lot of money in the Middle East as an exotic food to eat. So really? You take all that, you put it together, and I thought, this is a really great film. And what can I do? I'm not Nat Geo. I'm not the Discovery Channel. I'm just Wendy, who grew up in the Bronx and knew she was going to go to Africa. But I took and I started making these films. And then the non-for-profits I started working with that had these causes, I was able to give the films to them and they could show it at their fundraisers. It's a brilliant idea. And I had to take the idea of making money from it because you can't. But guess what? Sometimes there's more things in life that are worth it than things you can put a price tag on. And I've had unbelievable experiences, unbelievable to share with people.
Wow. Well, thanks for sharing with us today. This is also fascinating. And we're going to have you back and hear more because I know you've got more stories to tell us and to share. But yeah, it's so inspiring. And I miss the Hollywood days. What I miss about auditioning is going into a room and seeing a bunch of other young girls or women, whatever age. Yeah. That look like me. We're all type.
Yeah, you're type.
You become friends with them because you see the same girls at every audition. And so then you become friends. You start exchanging phone numbers. You're going to acting class together. I miss the acting classes. I just miss that camaraderie. And half the time, I think, my agents would always tell me I wasn't serious because I'd go on an audition. And if I couldn't find parking close enough, I would leave. I'd be like, well, there wasn't parking.
Oh my God, an agent.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
Love
I
that.
did that. And my agents would get so mad at me because it's so hard to get an audition.
Yeah.
And they'd be like,
Yeah.
you can't do that. You have to show up. You have to go to the audition because now they don't want to meet. They're not going to give you another audition. So anyway,
Right.
I don't know that I was that passionate about getting the work. And obviously it wasn't meant to be because it didn't happen. But I loved the acting classes and going to the auditions with the other,
TV.
girls.
Yeah.
But anywho, you've brought some of my youth back, and you've given me some of my youth
Oh,
today. So I
that makes
appreciate
me
that.
happy.
Thank
I
you.
didn't do that.
Just remembering those days and all the fun in Hollywood and rushing around to try to get an audition and then not getting parking spots and leaving. I wasn't gonna walk like a mile in my high heels shoes or whatever.
Oh my God. Believe me,
That
Kelly,
wasn't close enough,
I wouldn't either. New York is way easier to do things in. Even in
Right.
California, though, now they've got everybody putting themselves. Though
Now it's
this
all
is,
on
we
tape.
are talking about now. This is how it is, and
Yeah.
I always say it does not do us well to complain or moan about it. I go with the flow, and
Yeah.
I looked at my email right before I came on your show, and I've got 2 auditions on there, and I'm like, okay, let me see what torturous scene they sent me. Where that's the other thing, finding somebody to read with you. I
Yeah.
What I do, I have 2 phones, one I tape with, and the other one I have like 8 friends and family that can call me on that I send the script to. I have them read the other part and I put the phone on speaker. Okay, because it's a heck of a lot easier than having to call all over the place, getting people to, do it with you to come to your apartment. I swear, I think casting directors think at a certain age we're still all living with roommates. I don't know. It doesn't make any sense,
Yeah.
right?
No.
Thank
Yeah,
you
it's
guys
definitely
so much for
changed.
having me today.
Definitely changed. But awesome to talk to you. Thank you so much for joining us. And I hope that we get to talk to you again. And,
Absolutely.
maybe we will talk and plot and plan some other things.
Yes, that sounds good to me.
Meantime.
Thank you again, and bye-bye, everybody.
Bye, Wendy. Thank
Take
you.
care. Bye.
All views expressed in this video belong to Kelly Nicholson, John D'Amore, and guests. These discussions do not represent the opinions of any entity whatsoever with which they have been affiliated now or will be in the future. The opinions expressed are solely theirs, and since they are critically thinking human beings, these views are subject to change, subject to revision, and subject to rethinking at any time. These conversations are not meant to be taken as advice and are only for the purpose of entertainment. All statements may be based on hearsay and not necessarily valid proof of any claims in this video. It is not our intention to teach or advise on any topic. Unless otherwise noted, all photos are public domain. Thanks for watching A Slice of Life with Kelly and John.